My parents basically said, this is your problem. You're going to need to solve it.
You're listening to Financial Grownup with me, certified financial planner Bobbi Rebell, author of How to Be a Financial Grownup. And you know what? Being a grownup is really hard, especially when it comes to money. But it's okay. We're going to get there together. I'm going to bring you one money story from a financial grownup, one lesson, and then my take on how you can make it your own. We got this. Hey friends, thank you so much for joining me on this very first episode of Financial Grownup. Most of us fight pretty hard for our independence from our parents, but it gets a little bit murky when it comes to money. I know that's been an issue for me over the years, and it also includes our first guest. Now, I feel like I've known him for years, but that may just be because, well, we see him everywhere from the Today Show to Oprah Winfrey, but I didn't actually meet him until my book came out about a year ago. I was moderating a panel at the 92nd Street Y, and maybe about a week ahead of time, I was told that he would be on the panel. Total panic, of course, guys. I mean, I was so intimidated to meet someone that I really looked up to. By the way, I had even talked about him in my book. I don't know why I didn't call him for comment. I just talked about him and the latte factor. You know what? He's super cool. We've crossed paths a number of times in the last year or so, and he has become a mentor and a friend. He is David Bach, 9-time New York Times bestselling author. He is also co-founder and director of investor education at AE Wealth Management. Here is David Bach. David Bach, Financial Grownup, welcome to the program.
Bobbi, it's great to be with you. Congratulations on your new podcast.
Thank you, and thank you for being my number one financial grown-up. Okay, before we get into deep thoughts about money, you have a lot to be celebrating in the new year, including your book, Smart Couples Finish Rich, 9 Steps to Creating a Rich Future for You and Your Partner.
Well, thank you. Yes, we're totally excited. This book is coming back out as a re-release, extended, updated edition. It's hard to believe, but it's been 17 years since we put the book out originally. It was the number one paperback book of 2004. So super excited to share this book again with a whole new generation of couples that, want to learn how to be smart with their money. It's going to be really fun.
All right, big hit of 2018, but let's get to your financial grown-up moment because we know that grown-ups learn from those who have succeeded. You certainly have. Share a money story with us, David.
My real money grown-up moment happened in college. I went to USC. And freshman year in the dorms, I was the stupid kid that signed up for all the credit cards, right
you
at my...
did not.
I did.
I still can't believe this.
I know. They were handing out bike locks and they were handing out T-shirts and back in the day a dictionary. That tells you how long ago it was. And so I signed up like everybody else did with my student ID. And then, a few weeks later, I had 3 credit cards that had been sent to me, and they were small cards. They were like $500 each, I think, at the time. But I remember
But you had no income, right? You had no income. To be clear.
Well, of course not, right? I'm a freshman in college, but they gave everybody at college a credit card. And, that's what they do. It's a complete scam. And they market on campus and they get you early, and they got me. And I was stupid. In retrospect, I was just a dumb kid. I started using those credit cards and then I maxed them out and I was making minimum payments. So I thought I was doing everything okay. But then as soon as I maxed out those credit cards, they actually increased my limit. I kept using them, and before I knew it, I couldn't make the minimum payments, and I had $5,000 in credit card debt. And I had to come home for the holidays, and this was sophomore year. I came home for the holidays, and I remember I didn't know how to tell my parents that I needed help, and I finally sat down with my dad and said, "Dad, I really have to talk to you." And my dad had an office. I handed him the credit card bills, and I was kind of shaking as I did it because I was so sick over what I had done. And I said, Dad, I've got a real problem. I go, we have a problem on our hands.
We have a problem.
We have a problem on our hands. And I handed him the bills. And, Bobbi, you've never met my dad, but my dad's a great guy. But he looked at those bills and he handed them right back to me. And he said, son, we don't have a problem. you have a problem. And I said, Dad, what do you mean? He goes, I want you to tell me whose name is on the top of those credit cards. And I said, well, my name. He said, do you see my name anywhere on these credit cards? And I go, no. He goes, exactly. We don't have a problem. You have a problem.
Oh, no.
That was my wake up moment, because that motivated me as a sophomore to become an entrepreneur, because I realized I'm going to have to make more money than I can make with a minimum wage job. And so I ultimately, the good news is I ultimately did become an entrepreneur sophomore year in college. I started selling T-shirts at the football games and on campus and to the fraternity and sororities, and became an entrepreneur in college in an effort to get myself out of credit card debt.
Okay, so David, what is your lesson that you want to share with everyone from this? Besides, obviously, do not get into credit card debt in college. We know that.
The lesson I learned at a young age is that, honestly, credit card debt is really, really bad debt. You have to avoid credit card debt like the plague, like a cancer, I think. And I will tell you that I got myself out of credit card debt. I got myself back into credit card debt a second time.
Unbelievable.
By the time I was a senior, I was like, okay, I really, really need to learn these lessons. And I did. I finally cut up all my credit cards, went to a debit card and a cash management card, like an American Express card, where I had to pay it off every month. And I have never carried credit card debt since the age of 21. I have avoided borrowing money for over 3 decades.
Wow.
And that's worked for me. You know what? That's a conservative way to go through life, but I'm a big believer that there's really actually no such thing as good debt and bad debt. There's only debt. And if I'm going to borrow money and you're going to borrow money, my recommendation is you borrow money to buy something that can go up in value. Don't borrow money that the moment you buy it, it goes down in value.
David, give us a money tip.
Every month I'm making a goal to cancel one thing if we're really not using it. So last month, my gym membership just got let go. That was $206 a month. So here, let's take my little handy dandy calculator. Let's just figure out 206 times 12. That one little thing that I just canceled about a week ago is going to save me $2,472 in 2008.
All right, David, you have inspired me to go through all the things I pay for and make a New Year's resolution to cut back on things that I do not need, which is obvious, but we just don't do that stuff. So thank you, David Bach. We'll see you soon.
You're welcome, Bobby. Have a great day.
I am a huge David Bach fan, but I'm going to add my take, and David may not totally approve. He is right. Credit card debt is the worst. But we need to stop the shame game and also acknowledge not everyone who has credit card debt did it by buying a ton of stuff in college. Maybe you or someone you love had a healthcare emergency. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you blew through an emergency fund. The point is, it happens. It is not always because you did something wrong. Maybe you didn't buy a ton of stuff. And the other reality, even though there are ways to pay it off, like the snowball where you pay off the smallest balance first, there's also the avalanche where you pay off the highest interest rate debt first. That can also work well if you can do it. But there is something more you can do that is controversial, but I'm going to put it out there as an option, and this may upset some people. I'm going to talk about some Band-Aids. Let's say you not only have the debt, but being honest. It is not going to be paid off anytime soon. You just don't have the cash flow to do the snowballs and the avalanches or whatever. It's not happening. Sometimes the most grown-up thing to do is to be realistic and slap a Band-Aid on. Buy some time. So grown-up option number 1. If you have good credit, say yes to one of those offers to transfer the balance to a zero-interest credit card. Look for one that does not charge a fee, because those can be as much as 5%. They're out there. That can also buy you a year or more to pay it off without also paying that 20% plus in interest. But you have to be a grown-up here, and you have to realize the debt is still there. It is just not as painful. But this way, your payments are going to the debt, not to the interest. Just don't go run up charges on credit card number 1 again. Grown-up option number 2. The home equity line of credit or home equity loan. Again, debt not going away. But, for example, I just got an offer for 2.99% interest on a HELOC. If you move the debt over to a home equity loan or a line of credit, you are paying a lot less in interest. You still have the debt. You're paying a little bit in interest, but not over 20%. And again, it is less painful. Band-Aids, not solutions, but just something to think about. That is a wrap. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been a sneak peek episode of Financial Grownup. All right, we have one quick ask before we head out. We need your support and especially your feedback. Hit the subscribe button, please. And in the comments, tell us what you liked and maybe what you want to hear more of on this podcast, including who you'd love as a guest. I hope you enjoyed the show and that we all got one step closer to being financial grown-ups. Financial Grownup with Bobbi Rebell is a BRK Media production.